I know where I came from, but where did all you zombies come from? Hey guys, Todd here. Appease the engagement overlords and hit the like and subscribe button to bring me one step closer to taking over the Galaxies. All You Zombies is a short story by Robert A. Heinlein published in 1959 in the Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction. Often grouped with Asimov and Clarke as sci-fi's big three, Heinlein is one of the most important science fiction authors of the 20th century. He wrote All You Zombies in a single day on July 11th, 1958, and I think what he produced in that one sitting is one of the most disturbing time travel stories ever put on paper. The story opens in a bar called Pop's Place in New York City. It's November 7th, 1970. A bartender is polishing a brandy snifter when a young man walks in. The bartender calls him the Unmarried Mother. It's a nickname that comes from what the young man always says when someone asks what he does for a living. I'm an unmarried mother. If he felt less than murderous, he would add, at 4 cents a word, I write confession stories. The bartender knows more about this man than he lets on. He tells us right away that he's a temporal agent, a time traveler working for some kind of government bureau, and that this young man is someone that he's been sent to recruit. But the bartender plays it cool. He pours a double shot of something called old underwear. He leaves the bottle and starts making conversation. The bartender eventually nudges the unmarried mother into telling his life story by wagering that nothing he says will surprise him. And the young man takes that bet. To start, the young man explains that he was a foundling, born a bastard and left at an orphanage in Cleveland in 1945 when he was only a month old. He was born biologically female and grew up as a girl named Jane in that orphanage. Jane was lonely and plain looking, and therefore she was never adopted. She made a vow that any child of hers would have both a mother and a father. She kept herself out of trouble and planned to enlist in a military service called Wenches, a program that trained women to serve as companions for spacemen in long missions. It stood for Women's Emergency National Corps, Hospitality and Entertainment Section, what they now call Space Angels, Auxiliary Nursing Group, Extraterrestrial Legions. But before she could enlist, we're told she met a man. He was a real city slicker with a wad of $100 bills who was kind to her. He was the first man I ever met who was nice to me without trying games with me. I quit night school to see him oftener. It was the happiest time of my life. Then one night in the park, the games began. He seduced her and vanished. He never came back, and suddenly Jane found herself pregnant. But something happened during the cesarean delivery that nobody ever suspected. Jane had 2 complete sets of reproductive organs, both male and female, with the female set just developed enough to carry a child. The birth caused complications that destroyed her female anatomy, and the surgeons had no choice but to reconstruct her body as male. But after delivering her child and living through the most traumatic moment of her life, she comes to find out that an unidentified man snuck into the hospital and kidnapped her child. In the space of a single hospital stay, Jane loses her baby to a kidnapping, loses her body as she knew it, and loses her entire future. The Wenches won't take her. The Space Corps, they have no need for her because in their eyes, she's no longer a woman. They look at her surgical scars, and the rejection is immediate. I was as ruined as a woman can be. That bum really ruined me. I was no longer a woman, and I didn't know how to be a man. So the former Jane changes her name. She moves to New York City. and starts writing confession stories for cheap magazines. She has an authentic woman's angle because she's lived it. And that's the unmarried mother. And that's the story he tells the bartender to win the bottle. During the conversation, the bartender's ring comes up. The unmarried mother notices it and assumes it's a wedding band. But the bartender corrects him. It's an antique, he says, bought from a fellow operative. An ouroboros, a world snake that eats its own tail. Or as he calls it, a symbol of the great paradox. Jane grabs the old underwear. Surely nobody can top that story. I was desperate. But the bartender isn't done. He reveals that he knows things about the unmarried mother that the young man never told him. He knows the orphanage matron's name. He knows his name as a girl. He says he can take the unmarried mother to the man who ruined his life.
What if I could put him in front of you? Huh? The man that ruined your life.
The young man's eyes light up with a feral gleam. The bartender leads him to the back room and pulls out a time machine and flips the switch. In a matter of seconds, they land in Cleveland, April 1963. The young man doesn't believe it, but can't deny the differences around them. The bartender hands the young man a stack of $100 bills and tells him to go find the man who wronged him. Now, maybe you're a more astute reader than me. Maybe you've been paying attention and you already know what's about to happen. But what comes next, it completely blew my mind. The unmarried mother doesn't find the man who seduced Jane. He finds Jane herself. He becomes the man who seduced her. He's the city slicker with $100 bills. The man who ruined Jane's life is the person Jane became after her life was ruined. There's never been an outside villain to blame for Jane's downfall. It was always Jane herself. The bartender, he enters the hospital and steals the baby from the nursery and heads all the way back to September 1945. He leaves her on the steps of the Cleveland orphanage. The baby is Jane. The child is its own mother and father. It has no ancestors who are not itself. The world snake eating its own tail. The great paradox. Now you know who he is. And after you think it over, you'll know who you are. And if you think hard enough, you'll figure out who the baby is and who I am. The bartender drops the unmarried mother off at a military base in 1958 to begin training as a temporal agent. Years of service will age him. It will change his face and give him the scars and wariness of a man who's jumped through decades. Eventually, he'll become the bartender. Every person in this story who matters, the baby, the girl, the lover, the writer, the bartender, they're all the same individual at different points along a single looping timeline. There's no origin or first cause. This person created themselves. At the end, the bartender returns to Pop's place in 1970. He closes up shop and eventually makes it back to headquarters in 1993. He's tired. He's been doing this for 30 years of time jumping. So he pours himself a drink from the bottle he won back when he was a columnist. It tasted foul, and I wondered why I had ever liked old underwear. But it was better than nothing. I don't like to be cold sober. I think too much. But I don't really hit the bottle either. Other people have snakes. I have people. He undresses and notices the cesarean scar on his belly. It's mostly hidden now under body hair. And he looks at the ring on his finger. An ouroboros, the snake that eats its own tail, forever and ever. I know where I came from. But where did all you zombies come from? The young man, now old, knows exactly where he came from. Because he came from himself. And because he knows that, the origin of everyone else becomes the real mystery. Where do they come from? How can he trust that anyone else is real when every significant person in his own life turned out to be him? All you zombies. The title of the story refers to everyone else. The zombies are the people whose consciousness he can't verify. You aren't really there at all. There isn't anybody but me, Jane, here alone in the dark. I miss you dreadfully. I think that last line is one of the most affecting endings I've read recently. He calls himself Jane. After everything he's been through, the surgeries, the pregnancy, the decades of time loops, he still thinks of himself as the lonely girl from the orphanage. And that you he misses, it could be the woman he once was, or the lover he once had, or even the child he once carried. But all of those people are him, and he misses himself. He misses the illusion that he was ever connected to someone outside of his own closed loop. I think that's what this story is really about. On the surface, it's a story of time travel and paradoxes, but really, it's about solipsism, the idea that only your own mind can be confirmed to exist. If you're familiar with the works of Philip K. Dick, you've likely come across this concept more than a few times. Heinlein builds a narrative where solipsism is physically true. One person, folded through time, occupying every role in their own life. The loop is horrifying enough, but the tragedy is feeling what it's like from the inside, to know that every face you've ever loved was your own. The 2014 film Predestination with Ethan Hawke is a pretty accurate adaptation of this story. And the movie's great, but I'd recommend reading the story. It's short, but it sticks with you long after you're done reading. Now, that's it for today's video. Have you read All You Zombies? What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Make sure you like and subscribe for more sci-fi videos. Take care, keep reading, and I'll see you in the next one.